Hello YouTube. Got the proper marriage certificate this time. Ooh, get it back. My bunny can now stay for 2.5 years. 30 months. Got it right this time. Months. Definitely months, not weeks. I kept saying 30 weeks. 30 weeks is like nothing. No, she has 30 months until 2020. Speaking of my lady bunny, I'm actually going to be responding a bit more to what she said this time, not just one little particular thing. Because she asked me, based on the previous recording I'd done, that I said that I needed something. That wasn't last week, that was the week before. Said that, you know, I don't know what it is, but I need something to help me out because of, you know, the assistance generally offered to people with anxiety is CBT, cognitive behaviour therapy, which I understand is extremely efficient. You know, not efficient, effective, extremely effective. It's a really good way of doing it with people, and it does sound great. I'd love to try it. It's just because the NHS is always critically underfunded. They can't afford to send people out to houses because, I mean, they need to see as many people as they can, so they go to a localised location. A localised location? They go to a centralised location, that's the word I was looking for. And you go see them, which I can understand, you know, the NHS doesn't get that much money, and it does offer free, universal free healthcare to everybody, including citizens and non-citizens. As Bonnie found out, she was mystified by the fact that all she needed was a UK address, because that's all you really need. I mean, I've mentioned this before, but I mean, in some cases they might send a bill if you go back to your home country. They might their country might bill you, but you know, we pretty much have a system. If somebody needs help, you help them. You don't worry about how much it costs. You can deal with that later after they're alive. If they're not alive, well, you know, at least they tried, you know. Better them die because you weren't able to do anything for them than them die because you didn't try. By the way, this is an energy drink. It's called Spectra. Get it from the guy downstairs, it's a newsagent. It's 59p and it has less sugar in this energy drink than your typical, you know, this size can. And that's an energy drink. Yeah, it's kind of my thing. I have a cigar and an energy drink. It's especially when I'm feeling really. I don't know how those two combinations work, because I mean, one's a depressant and one's a stimulant. Anyway, CBT. The problem I have, and most people with social anxiety or agoraphobia, is the getting out of the house part. For some people, it makes them extremely uncomfortable, but they can still do it. I used to be like that, but it's been going on for many years, and I kept talking to people, trying to talking to my dogs. I didn't know what it was at the time, though, so I kept getting things like antidepressants and mood stabilizers, which didn't work. Shockingly enough, the anti-anxiety pills I'm taking now don't work either. This reminds me I haven't taken mine yet. They don't seem to do anything for me. I keep meaning to ask them to up the dosage because I'm a big lad. I'm 6'3" and like 260 pounds. I have a bit of a boogle, which I could do getting rid of. Those things don't help. It was Lucozade that started it. Anyway, as far as treatment, CBT seems like it would be perfect. It's just getting to it. I've mentioned this before. They do have online therapy available, but you have to go to a set location to do that, and it still means getting out of the house. And that's no fault to the NHS. And I mean, the NHS has its problems. There are some people in there who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and that's not entirely their fault. I mean, we have this view, you know, a doctor should know everything. Like, give over. Do you realise just how complex a fucking tapeworm is? Never mind something as relatively advanced as a dog or a cat or a human being. I mean, for Christ's sake, just look at the brain. We don't know anything about that. We don't know how it works. We know what it does, the physical processes, the biological processes that make the brain work. but we don't know why. We don't know how. We just know it does. So, I mean, think about things like cancer. We still don't know exactly what causes cancer. It's because there are loads of different types. I saw a news report about it. Something like 17, so 12, 17, something like double figures anyway, just for breast cancer. 12, 15, let's say 15 for sake of argument. There are 15 types of breast cancer. They all have more or less the same effect, but they're 15 unique diseases. And each one, for each person, is sort of a unique strain of it. It's like the common cold. And cancer is probably one of the best understood diseases on the planet because it's so ubiquitous. It affects so many different people. I mean, for Christ's sake, I have I have freckles on my hand. Don't know if you can see them. That's cancer. Those are cancerous cells. You know, they're benign. They don't hurt you in any way. But still, it's cancer. That's how common cancer is. Pretty much everybody has at least some cancerous cells in their body, and we don't understand that. So how are we supposed to understand the brain? You know, it's a brand new field of medicine, neurology. Very fascinating one as well. And if we don't understand the biological processes which you can actually observe, or we don't fully understand them, how are we supposed to understand the stuff going on underneath the hood that you can't see? You know, so a lot of it depends on self-reporting, because you can't like look inside somebody's mind, inside somebody's sensations. We can understand the chemical processes that are triggered by and cause certain stimuli, but you can't really predict how somebody's going to react to it. Just look at soldiers. It's one of the corporals when I was doing basic training, or pre-selection actually. No, it wasn't pre-selection. I'd done pre-selection, I'd done selection. No, I was doing selection training, that was it. I never made it to basic. Anyway, one of the corporals there told me about, I think they were in Afghanistan? Somewhere in the Middle East anyway. Unfortunately, the vast majority of military operations over the last 8 billion years have been in the Middle East. But there was experienced squad. There was one of the guys he was with, said something like 10, 15 years, something like that, and they went to, they set up a base in this abandoned village or something. They'd converted this, they'd found a big building, they'd set up all their, they'd set up in there rather than setting up tents and stuff, and they were being shelled. They were launching artillery fire onto the town, and one of the guys went missing. They didn't know where he was, so they thought the worst. They thought, you know, he'd been killed, but they had a scout round, couldn't find him, and they eventually went back. They found him huddled in a corner somewhere. Experienced guys. He'd been at least 8-10 years in the military. You know, he'd seen combat before. He'd come through it perfectly fine, but on that one particular time, for whatever reason, just messed him up, and he was there huddled in a corner, and somebody asked him what's wrong. He said, they're trying to get me. They're trying to get me. He was convinced that the shells were aiming specifically at him. So one of the other lads looked at him and said, well, then they're fucking terrible shots, aren't they? Because they haven't hit shit. And he picked himself back up and he got on with it. But that's the thing. You don't know how something's going to affect somebody. It's simple little things can really mess people up. So a lot of treatment for neurological or psychological conditions, it really depends on how much I know. No matter how experienced somebody is at present, hopefully this will change because we are starting to learn more. And although each person is an individual, there are definitely, we've seen things like CBT is effective for almost any psychological condition. It just takes it takes tailoring to each individual, but you need to engage with that, and that's where my problem comes in, is getting out in the first place. Now, I know that there are services that you can do online, but they cost money, and I'm not incredibly wealthy. I'm on state benefits, so it's not something I can really do anytime soon, not realistically, and even then, I don't know how I'm going to handle it, because there are times when I've been, even, you know, before Bonnie moved in, when we were trying to talk online, there were times when I'd start getting really anxious before calling her, and I really wanted to talk to her, but the idea of interacting with another person became overwhelming. So we went to see my daughter the weekend just gone, and we had a few people round my mother's place. There was her boyfriend, my aunt, as my mother's sister, and the next door neighbour. They're all nice people, and I got on well with all of them. But because there were so many people there, plus there was Bonnie, and there was my daughter, and her cousin is my niece is now there living with my mother as well. So there were 7 of us, and it just got so overwhelming for me. We had a really nice meal. I sat and talked for a little bit, and then I just disappeared upstairs and I was worn out from like an hour of being around that many people. And even one person can get to that. There's a guy I know. He comes to visit on a semi-regular basis, about 3 or 4 times a year. He's not that far away. We talk online almost every day. He's coming up in a few weeks actually, because there's a convention on in Manchester which we have press passes for. I'm hoping I can get to that. I should be. I'm better when there's somebody else with me to encourage me to get out. But there was one of the times he came here. We were fine. We did an E3 thing. We stayed up late and we did commentary on E3. We live streamed it. And we were chatting and stuff. And then on the final day, both of us, we just sort of, we were sat in the living room. We were going to do something, and then I got up and went, and he went and fell asleep. And then we both just slept for a day. Just avoided each other, which was no mean feat, considering that this place is like the living room's here. There's a door there, a door there, a door there, and a door there. That one's my bedroom. He was in here. I was in there. The bathroom's over there, so I had to come out and go to it. But we still managed to just. Hanging on the final day, we both, before he was leaving, we both got up and played games for a bit. And that was just from him being here. And we had a lot of fun with it. It was the first time I'd met him, but there have been other times since then. I can't remember when it was, but there was one occasion. Again, we were playing games. I was just starting to lay down. I got up and he didn't see me for half a day. So, you know, it can come up out of nowhere. That could possibly be because I'm on the autistic spectrum. To commentate with autism is you become overwhelmed very quickly, because people misunderstand what autism is, or autistic spectrum disorder, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people think it's like the information doesn't get in. And the problem is too much gets in. A very easy way to explain this is when there's a lot of noise around me, I struggle to pick out individual sounds because I hear all of it. So it's like a buzz. It's not literally a buzzing noise, but it feels like, you know, a consistent buzz or a hum. And I'm constantly having to ask people to repeat things over and over because I haven't properly heard what they've said, because there's so much else going on. It's like right now I can hear the fan. I can hear that little door, one of the doors just slowly, ever so slightly moving. It's like a little clicking noise. Sometimes I hear cars outside. I can hear the wind, even with the windows closed. And that's something that people can understand, something people can relate to. You know, when you're outside and you hear lots of cars around, you're trying to hear properly on your phone, and you have to get it close, and you have to shout so that they can hear you on the other end, that kind of thing. That's what my brain is like when it comes to social interactions. Even thinking about it, there's something constantly going on in there, and I need to just stop and settle and relax, and I never know when it's going to happen because it's constantly building up. So I can feel absolutely fine, and then it'll just be like there's a car going past, but see what I mean? It'll be something like, you know, like in a film, I suppose, when you're cut with the clacker board thing, it's like that. Somebody just flicks a switch and it's done. So how are we supposed to deal with that? I don't know. The only thing I do know is it's something we need to do a lot more study on. a lot more investigation, something that we really need. And the problem is people who are like me, where it's deeply entrenched, the ones you could learn the most from, it's gotten to such a state that it's almost impossible for us to get out and engage with the professionals who, through no fault of their own, they don't know shit. I mean, I live with this, and I only know how I feel about it. I don't know what's actually happening. I only know how I react to it, how I feel like I react to it. So, when I used to go out, when I was coming home, I'd be sweating and I'd be out of breath, and I used to think that's just because I was in really poor health. I've got on a treadmill recently, and I found I can do several miles on that. I mean, I get tired, my legs hurt, I sweat, I get out of breath, but I can go for far longer than I thought. I could go for like 5-10 miles sometimes. So obviously, if I'm walking half a mile and I'm coming back sweating and out of breath, it's not because I'm out of shape. And it's a few times I did see a therapist in the past. She pointed that's a common stress reaction, is to start sweating and get out of breath. And then suddenly I realised I didn't know that's what it was until it was explained to me by somebody else. So, just because I live with it doesn't mean I know the ins and outs. So it's not all about the individual, physician. I can never say that word. Physician, heal thyself, as they say. Self-diagnosis is the worst possible thing to do, which is why you need somebody external, somebody with some understanding, because the brain, as complex as it is, it can only have so many interactions, so many responses, and if you have some knowledge of it, then you have a better way. I'm not sure exactly what I'm getting at here, but more study is needed. That's the important thing. As for what can be done for me, it's part of why we're doing this. I'm hoping that maybe with talking with Bunny about it, and hopefully other people can start chipping in, and we can all, between us, maybe make some sense out of all this and help the world. Because even people who are well-adjusted, normal, they still have their off days. Everybody needs a little help sometimes. Everybody's going to be affected by some sort of mental illness, whether they realise it or not. Some people, it's just to such an extent that it doesn't really impair their day-to-day life. But everybody has bad days and gets a little bit depressed. And it's still a neurological condition. It's still more or less, it's a dysfunction in the brain somewhere, because of sensory overload, or because they've had a bad day, or because their cat's died, a parent's died. Everybody, they keep saying it's like one in 4 people. No, everybody's going to be afflicted by something at some point in their life. Every single human being, every single living creature, even fucking cats can get social anxiety. You can get Prozac for cats, seriously, because sometimes they get anxious. They call them Thermo, as we have one at the moment. He licks himself constantly, to the extent that it does damage to his skin, and that's neurological dysfunction somewhere in the way that makes them ill. The so-called scaredy cats. There's a reason we have that expression, is because cats are very skittish about certain things. It's just a side effect of life, of being alive. I'm sure it even happens to things like fucking tapeworms. Imagine a claustrophobic tapeworm. That must be a kick in the dick. So, the takeaway from all this is, we don't know what would help anybody, never mind everybody. But the more we talk about this, the more perspectives we get, the more chance we have of figuring out a way to actually fix these things. I think long term that evolution is going to move to a point where it's no longer an issue. They'll find ways around it. I actually think that autism isn't a disease. It's an extreme manifestation of a new stage in human evolution. And I think what the brain's trying to do is move away from the very irrational, very emotional, illogical responses we've had in the past. Like, if you hear a sudden noise, and you suddenly get very tense and you're thinking, oh, is something coming to get me? That's a layover from the past when people were out in the field and that rustling in the bushes probably was the wind, but it could have been a tiger. It could be a tiger sneaking up about to pounce on you. In a situation like that, the best response is to run away, just in case, because if you don't and it is a tiger, it's going to numb your face. We don't have that kind of threat anymore. The world's much safer. But we're not that many generations removed. So the brain is trying to evolve, and it can only evolve with each generation that comes. It can only do so much. Sometimes it goes a bit wrong and you get things like autism, you get things like depression and type A personalities. Sooner or later it's going to equal out. People will be less emotional, more logical, more rational, better adjusted to this very safe, generally speaking, this very safe world that we now inhabit. Until then, there's a lot we can do, and there's a lot we still need to do to help the people in this very awkward transitional phase. As for what that is, that's why we're here. That's what we're trying to find out. And that's why we're doing this. So if anybody wants to chip in, feel free, because it's what it's all about. The only way we're ever going to learn is by talking about these things. And there's too much stigma around mental health and mental dysfunction. We need to tear that down. The only way we can do that is by people not being afraid of being judged for who they are. Because people are going to judge you anyway, so fuck them. Until next time, thank you for watching. There's the cat, the one that licks himself. Meow. Bitch.